Lundberg.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Thursday morning. We are just less than 2 weeks away from celebrating I guess what would be considered the biggest Christian holiday of the year. Maybe some people disagree with that. Boy, it's so loud in this.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of people talking somewhere.
I'll shut the door. I have to do this.
There we go. I figure that out. All right, but anyway, it's an important day, and it's a never-ending It's a never-ending source of dialogue. Our beliefs, our religion, our belief in God, our disbelief in God for those who don't believe in God, and then of course it gets even deeper when you start talking about Christianity and the work that Jesus did, and the meaning of the birth of Jesus. And of course that's what this Christmas season is about. Even though we have a lot of fun with some of the other things that have been associated with Christmas, there is another name that we need to remember, and his name is C.S. Lewis. The November that just passed was the 50th anniversary of the death of C.S. Lewis. And if you don't know who C.S. Lewis was, he was one of the preeminent Christian writers of the past century. And the Discovery Institute has released a YouTube video, so you can see it anytime you can get to your computer. It's a 17-minute long documentary, and I think it's called C.S. Lewis and Intelligent Design. I'm not so sure. Dr. John G. West is on the phone. He's the vice president of the Discovery Institute. He's also the director of the C.S. Lewis Fellows Program on Science and Society, and his list of credentials goes on, including contributing to the New York Times, to Fox News, to USA Today, to the Washington Post, and it goes on and on and on. And we're proud to say he's contributing to this show right now. Dr. John G. West is on the phone. So let's just say good morning, and I'll stop talking and let him start. Dr. West, good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Larry.
Thank you
and Robin.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to be with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I am calling actually from my home, sort of south of Seattle in Washington State.
Okay.
Wow.
If I had a discussion with somebody who absolutely not only didn't believe that God existed, but didn't believe that anything was intelligent about the design of all of us, it's hard to get them to understand the meaning of Jesus, the meaning of Christ's life, until I can at least get them to at least agree that there's the possibility that some of this may have intelligent design behind it. And so that's why it's important to talk about intelligent design. It's kind of like preschool. It's preschool for atheists is what intelligent design is, right?
I will have to remember that. I think that's a great phrase. But I think you were right that when people are just out-and-out materialists and they think we're just blind matter and energy, they sort of stick their heads in the sand and won't ask or think about a lot of questions, including certainly the existence of God, but they're just so in their little box. They are not avoiding much of reality.
Have you, when back in C.S. Lewis's time, did he refer to his beliefs as intelligent design?
No, he didn't use that term. I think he occasionally actually did use design, and the term intelligent design actually was in use back in the 1800s, so it's been around for a while. I said the modern argument probably started in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, both in physics and cosmology and then in biology, and so there's sort of been a more recent movement. But certainly the idea that there's design and purpose in nature was something that was part of the conversation, or at the time that he lived. And he's a good example, actually, of what you were just talking about, because he lost his faith as a youth and became an atheist and became a materialist, and he sort of had to climb his way back, or those who are Christians would believe that God helped him, find reality again. And so he had to think through things. And for him, one of the biggest objections to the idea of a benevolent creator or design period was the evil and suffering that he saw around the world. And so this new video that we have out on Lewis and intelligent design partly tells his personal story of how he went from being an atheist and seeing in his view, nature looks undesigned, to really becoming convinced that there was evidence of design. And then, of course, later in the story, that convinced him that he had to consider things that he had shut the door to, like God.
Yeah, like God. So when we agree, let me just put myself in the shoes of an atheist, and I think maybe we all have. I'll just speak for myself. I went through a period of questioning. Also, I don't know that I ever went so far as to consider myself an atheist, but I grew up in a family that where my mom made sure we went to Sunday school and did all that. So I kind of took it for granted that there was a God, and then I guess maybe in my late teens I started saying, really? I mean, does this story really make sense? And as I got older and really started questioning it and then thinking about it, it actually did make sense. There's not enough time, I don't think, in this talk show to be able to explain what I actually went through to decide to make my own conclusions. But when you read things from people like C.S. Lewis, it kind of, they've helped you a little bit, or a lot actually, in getting to that conclusion, coming to that conclusion.
No, I think that's right. I think everyone does go through time of questioning, or if they don't, they probably should, and think through things and appropriate them from themselves, and sort of graduate from a Sunday school understanding to something deeper. And often, if they short circuit that process, things cannot be all that great.
Well, and what I like, I'm sorry, Rob, but I just want to squeeze in what I like about one of the messages that Jesus delivered, and again, I'm not a Bible scholar, but it's almost like, well, what we believed when we were kids was all we really needed. And so we go through this whole process of being analytical, I guess, and intelligently trying to question our own, what we were taught. And in the end, all we really needed was that faith of a child. That's what I think is so awesome. You don't really need any big doctoral degree in order for this whole thing to make sense to you.
No, I think that there's pretty plain evidence. I would say, though, that I think that there's a long sort of history certainly in Christianity, that God is the author of our minds too, and so we're called to love God with all our hearts, souls, and our minds and strength. And so I do think that Christians sometimes, Christian parents, or even in churches, we so emphasize the childlike faith, which certainly is true, and I think especially there are many things that we come to understand that, we are creatures, God is God, and so this side of heaven we aren't going to understand, and we do need to trust once we've developed a personal relationship with Him. But on the other hand, God did author our minds, and so He's the God of that too, and that there are good and sufficient answers. And I think when churches or parents don't at least give kids the option and help them explore some of those things, what happens is when they come to high school or middle school now, or college certainly, they end up crashing. Now, some of them end up coming back, but I think we do a disservice to our kids if we don't bring them up, introduce them to the ideas that, in fact, these ideas do make sense, and there is a lot of evidence for them.
And people do have consciences, and that is forgotten, I think. I mean, people don't equate having a conscience because, you get that funny feeling if you think you're going to do something wrong and then you don't do it, with intelligent design. And I think they should, because everybody has this little voice inside of them, almost everybody, I think.
Oh, I think you're exactly right, and that was one of the key things that led Lewis to come to the idea that maybe there was design in nature after all. Was, as an atheist even, he certainly did have a sense of right or wrong, and that things were broken, and he realized, well, why am I thinking that things like suffering and cruelty are bad? And if I'm doing that, where does that come from? And I'm actually judging things as if there's some transcendent standard by which I can judge the universe. Well, if that's true, then that's actually something that exists outside the universe that you're using to judge the universe. If we're just the products of blind matter and motion, who cares? How can you say to the universe, well, I don't like you? I mean, you can say it, but on what objective criteria? So if you really want to hold on to the belief that I think you're right is written on virtually everyone's hearts until they maybe try to eradicate it, that there is a real right and wrong, a justice and injustice, that in and of itself actually points to something outside the material universe. And that was one of the clues that Lewis said, I think that things are really right and wrong, and if I want to hold on to that, then there has to be something besides just blind matter and motion.
It's pretty profound, actually, when you say it that way. One of the things that comes up, and we do a talk show, so that means we engage in arguments, or debates is a more proper word, I guess, a lot. And the one question I get back sometimes is, why are you, meaning me, so adamant about trying to convince me, the atheist, that there is a God? Why is it so important for you? Why can't I just believe there isn't one, and I'll let you believe that there is one? And my answer is this: because there are people who kill themselves because they believe there's no hope. I believe that because there is a God, then there is hope. And when you hear about somebody there's a story the other day about a soldier in Greece who killed himself because his girlfriend left him or something. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable. 21 years old.
Yeah.
Didn't think there was any hope. And I have no idea what his religious beliefs were. And I know people who do believe in God do commit suicide. I'm not trying to imply that. But I don't know. If you believe there's no hope, I don't know. I'm awkwardly answering the question, but.
Well, I mean, one of the most tragic stories that I've ever encountered was actually just a few years ago. I think it's 2009 or 2010, when a young college student who actually had been a veteran, I think, in the Air Force in his early 20s, committed suicide. His name was Jesse Kilgore, and his dad, what he found afterwards was that his biology professor had urged, sort of on the other side, was pontificating, trying to convert him to be an atheist, and gave him a book by Richard Dawkins called The God Delusion. And this was found, I think, under his bed after he committed suicide, and it had been, marked up and had obviously been read. And later it came out among the friends of this young man, and in fact his uncle, who was someone he opened up to, that reading that book had really devastated his faith. His dad, in fact, was a chaplain and was a minister, but reading this book had devastated his faith and made things hopeless for him. And that was part of apparently what drove him to kill himself. So now that's a really extreme case, but I do think that you're right, that there is this sense of hopelessness and that pervades that sort of worldview. And who would want anyone to have to suffer that?
Yeah, one of the things when I see Richard Dawkins on videos and he's engaging in debate, he never allows himself to be engaging in a debate with somebody like yourself. Somebody else who believes in God but doesn't have the articulate skills that you have is always the person he's debating, and he always comes out the winner in all those videos. Not that he really is the winner, but he appears to be the more powerful, the more knowledgeable. But people like yourself, he won't engage. It's like David Copperfield trying to duel with Uri Geller,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you were right. That, I mean, he, I think on one or two occasions has let his guard down, and it hasn't turned out so well. And so you're right. For the most part, he won't debate anyone. I mean, I'm actually more from the social sciences, but of some of our scientists or philosophers of science, like Steve Meyer and others, who have actually, sought, let's debate. And basically, a lot of these prominent people who get to be spokespeople in the media, like Richard Dawkins, are really, actually, it's cowardly. I mean, they are not there when it comes down to it. You're right, they don't want to debate someone who has sort of equal academic training or equal articulateness, so that they aren't just punching at a punching bag or a caricature. That's the level at which they can debate, and that in itself, I think, should be telling to people about the weaknesses of that position.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And the Christians themselves are still being persecuted to this day. I mean, it's not like it was when they were thrown to the lions and stuff all those eons ago. But, I mean, just a few years back, there was that big push to take Christmas out of Christmas and make it holiday shopping and not Christmas shopping. And when, people that that don't believe in Jesus talk to Christians, they always seem like they're offended because the Christians believe in Jesus and they don't. But it doesn't seem to be the other way around sometimes. It seems like the Christians might be more tolerant of all of the other religious sects, and I just think it's wrong that other people in other religions are just so adamant to squash the Christians.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the religion of secularism and materialism is one of the most intolerant. I mean, there is a lot of persecution worldwide. There is a lot of persecution that we see among scientists and students and professors being able even just to talk about the evidence for design. This very year in Indiana, at a place called Ball State University, a Christian who was a really delightful and articulate physicist had taught for years an honors college course that was on the limits of science. And as part of that course, they studied some of the debate, some of the evidence for design in physics and cosmology, and a group, just a radical group called the Freedom from Religion Foundation, basically came down on the university and bullied them and into censoring the class. And then that was just a few months ago, and then a few months after that, there's a community college in Texas where a biology professor was teaching an adult elective that wasn't even for credit on the design debate, and a group of local atheists, they called themselves the Free Thought Oasis, which was really Orwellian because they weren't for free thought, they were for closed thought. They threatened that if they allowed this non-credit elective enrichment class to go forward, that they would disrupt it.
Wow.
Send in protesters, and so the university caved and canceled that class. And so we have, and we hear about graduate students who are persecuted. I mean, I don't think people realize quite how intolerant people are on this issue, and we don't have free speech in science right now to raise questions of design and purpose.
Yeah, and we've heard many stories similar, and that is just such a shame. Let me just reintroduce our guest. Dr. John G. West is our guest. He's the Vice President of the Discovery Institute. By the way, if you've ever wanted to learn about the Discovery Institute, the website is discovery.org. And we're talking today about the documentary C.S. Lewis and Intelligent Design. Is the thing on YouTube, it's 17 minutes long, but is that a teaser or is that the whole thing?
That's the whole thing, although it's one of 3 videos we've done really about Lewis and science and design. It's the last of the 3 parts. So the first part is 30 minutes, second one is 22 minutes, and then this last final is 17 minutes, and people can view it for free on YouTube, or the easiest place to find it probably is just to go to a place called cslewisweb.com, cslewisweb.com, because the links are all there. Or you could search for the C.S. Lewis channel on YouTube, but cslewisweb.com will give you the direct links to where you can view it for free.
Okay. Now is C.S. Lewis a household name? I don't think I know much about him, to be honest with you. I mean, am I left out, or am I with the masses on this one?
Well, his books have sold something like 200 million copies.
All right,
so he is his life was fictionalized in a Hollywood film many years ago, not really completely accurately, but with Deborah Winger and Sir Anthony Hopkins, called Shadowlands. And then just the 50th anniversary of his death, which is why we were bringing this out now, he died on the same day that JFK did in November, just a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And so at that day in Westminster Abbey in England, they have something called Poets' Corner, where they celebrate some of the greatest writers and thinkers of the English language, and basically a memorial was unveiled to Lewis that day. So he's now memorialized next to William Shakespeare, Jane Austen, and a lot of other English authors and writers in Westminster Abbey. So yeah, he is prominent, but there are lots of people who don't know about him, and this is one of the delights of life, of learning about new people who you could read. And Lewis is great because his probably most famous is his children's novels, The Chronicles of Narnia, which have been made into some films. But he also wrote Mere Christianity, so sort of basically the evidence for Christianity and for God. He wrote an adult science fiction trilogy. He wrote his own area of expertise was actually medieval and English Renaissance literature.
And the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was probably the title I would know, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I knew the titles. I don't know that I knew anything about him. Hopefully I didn't make any getting this.
Oxford and Cambridge. He was first. He was a scholar at Oxford, and then later in life at Cambridge, where he was great friends with J.R.R. Tolkien. So people who love Lord of the Rings can thank Lewis in part for that, because Lewis gave a lot of encouragement to Tolkien to finish and to actually write his great.
Did he decide at some point that trying to express his faith or his belief in God would work better if he intertwined it into fiction, into storytelling?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are some stories on that actually. But he also, I mean, from day one, he first wanted to be a poet. He never quite succeeded in that, but he was always interested in the arts and literature, and so I think it partly also was just an expression of his own creativity and joy. But certainly in the Chronicles of Narnia, one of the things he was getting at is how can you express the joy and vibrancy of the Christian life in a way, because often Christianity to many people is missold as something that is dour, something that is boring, something that is sour and repressive and not joyful and not real. And people's own sense of the relationship to God can sometimes be very cold. And so he did think that fiction was a way that some of that could be explored.
And he really, really gets at people's emotions with his writings, and especially the Chronicles of Narnia, because all of the characters in there, even though some are animated, the movie that we saw, you still have to feel for all of the characters. You can feel the hate and you can feel the love, depending.
Yes. He had great insight, psychological insight into how people think and how their emotions go, and I think that's one reason why his books have sold so many copies.
The documentary is easy to get to. This is an interesting conversation, actually, because a lot of times when we'll speak to an author, we'll say, "Well, how do we get the book or whatever?" In this case, you just go to YouTube, right? Is the video also, I guess, embedded on one of the sites that you are with?
Yes, actually, cslewisweb.com is something that we've set up, so you can go that, and there is it was inspired by a book I edited called The Magician's Twin, and if people want that, they certainly can get that, and if they want to have it in a DVD format, we've put it so you can actually get it at Amazon, but for those of people who watch things online, it's available in HD through YouTube for free.
That's pretty. It's an amazing time that we can have such. I mean, this morning we had this whole segment where we were talking about the viral videos that are out there, and the numbers are unbelievable. 38 million. I mean, just unbelievable how many people are watching these things.
The number of hours that people watch of online videos if you look in the last 5 years, has skyrocketed astronomically, and we're changing how people get video content.
When you yourself, sir, come across someone like C.S. Lewis, even though they might not be so famous, and then you hear of their history as to how they really didn't believe and then they returned to believe, you and the people there at the Discovery Institute really have a lot of tolerance and an open mind, because so many people, if they come across someone that has never believed as they do, they will shut them out. And you're telling everyone that you should always accept somebody for who they are, and to just listen to what makes them tick, and then you can have a good dialogue, and that way you'll be able to interact with each other and possibly change somebody's mind.
I do think it's great advice that before you say anything that we learn to listen. And I know I was a college professor for 12 years, and one of the things that I enjoyed when students, both in class but also outside of class, would share things is trying to listen to them and elicit, what were their real beliefs and why did they believe how they did, because that, before you actually say anything, it is really good to really appreciate where someone else is coming from.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you, Doctor, for being on the air with us again. The websites are discovery.org, cslewisweb.com, and of course YouTube, if you want to see the documentary C.S. Lewis and Intelligent Design. Dr. West, thank you so much. Have a great Christmas.
Larry and Robin, you too.
All right.
Thanks again.
Great
Okay.
chat. We'll take a little break and be right back.
This is a public notice. Local residents can now save thousands of dollars on their next car, truck, or SUV. It's not a tent sale, because no tent is big enough to hold this many cars. It's OcalaForSale.com. Say goodbye to sticker shock. OcalaForSale.com has thousands of vehicles with no stickers at all. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge. Undercutting, rust proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
Hi, I'm Yvette, and I'm here to tell you a few things about ABC Frederick's Appliance. They sell